Structural Theory 1. For Chapter 2 is the analysis of statically determinate structures. So our concern here are trusses, beams, and frames. But for lesson 2, our main concern will be on trusses. So what is a truss? A truss is a simple two-dimensional structure formed by combining one-dimensional linear members to create a triangular pattern. So as you can see there in your notes, the types of trusses are simple planar, compound planar, and complex planar trusses. So basically, these trusses are a combination of triangles. As discussed during the degree of indeterminacy, the minimum number of members to be considered as statically determinate should be 3. Before I discuss with you the common methods used in the analysis of trusses, I would just like to go back to the discussion during your physics and statics of rigid bodies, especially regarding vectors, magnitude, and direction. So let's take, for example, this figure. You're required to determine the value of Ij and Ih using the 3 static equations. What are these static equations? Again, we have your summation of forces along the x-axis, the summation of forces along the y-axis, and the summation of moments. For this case, for this problem, we cannot use summation of moments. We can only use summation of forces along the x and summation of forces along the y-axis. Now, going back to your vectors, let's say I'm going to isolate IH, wherein IH has an angle of 45 degrees from the horizon. So, itong 45 degrees, ang basis ko dito is from the horizon. So, ito yung angle na to. IH is inclined at a certain angle, 45 degrees. So, if I'm going to solve if I'm going to analyze this one, since nakaslant si IH, we have a vertical and horizontal component, as discussed during your physics. Remember this one? So, itong IH na to, since nakaslant siya, we have IHH and IHB. Paano natin isolve si horizontal component ni IH? IHH, or the horizontal component, is equal to IH multiplied by cosine 45 degrees. And for the vertical component, IHV is equal to IH sine 45 degrees. See, there's a pattern here. Kapag sinabing horizontal component, that is equal to yung force multiplied by the cosine of the angle. But you have to take note here, dapat yung angle na yun, that is with the horizon. So, let's say, ang given na angle ay ito. Kapag yung angle nandito, the easiest way for you para hindi na kayo malito is, kapag given, let's say, ang beta, para ma-determine nyo yung horizontal at vertical component, kunin niya yung kung ano yung angle dito. Kasi ang basis natin is always on the horizon. Okay? Kapag sinabing horizontal component, force multiplied by the cosine of the angle. Vertical component, force multiplied by the sine of the angle. Okay, so going back to this problem. If we take summation of forces along the y-axis, my assumption here, upwards, positive. So, summation of forces along y-axis, upwards, positive. 15 is upward, so that's positive. 10 is downwards, minus 10. Again, the vertical component of IH is pointing downwards, so that's minus IH sine 45 degrees. And putting this in your calculator, IH is equal to 7.07 kilonewtons. For the summation of forces along the x-axis, to the right, positive. IG is to the right, so that's positive. The horizontal component of IH is IH cosine 45 degrees. So, therefore, ito yung equation ko. Substitute IH, my IG now is almost equal to 5 kilonewtons. So, this is how you're going to solve for the horizontal and vertical component given na yung angle is with the horizontal. What if ganito yung given na problem? The same, IH is already given. Example lang ito. IH is equal to 10, wherein given ang slope ng IH, that is vertical 3, horizontal 4, and the hypotenuse is 5. Hindi given yung angle. So, paano kapag ganito? To determine the horizontal component of IH, that is equal to 4 over 5 over I times IH. Ano tong 4? Kung papansinin ninyo, itong 4 na to, this corresponds to the horizontal of the slope. Divide by the hypotenuse of that triangle, yung maliit na triangle na ito na nakikita ninyo. Multiplied by the force IH. Given si IH for this case, that is 10. Therefore, the horizontal component of my IH is equal to 8. For the vertical component naman, that is this time, kunin natin yung vertical ng slope, that is 3 divided by the hypotenuse, multiplied by IH. Therefore, my IHB is equal to 6. See the difference? Kapag ang given is yung angle, tapos ang hinahanap ninyo is the horizontal component, you have to multiply that by cosine. Kapag naman vertical component ang hinahanap mo, tapos ang given is the angle, multiply that by sine. Pero kapag slope ang given, this is how you're going to do it. I hope na medyo na-remind kayo regarding the vectors and magnitude. This was discussed during your physics. I suggest you open your notes again in physics and statics of rigid bodies. Again, in method of joints. May tinatawag tayong strut at saka tie. Ano yung strut, ano yung tie? Let's say na certain member, kapag yung force towards the point, that is said to be a strut or yung member mo under siya ng compression. Kapag naman yung force is away from the joint, that is a tie or yung member mo under siya ng tension. Again, kapag yung force towards the joint, that is a compression member. Kapag yung force away from the joint, that is a tension member. Let's have an illustration. Ito yung nasa notes ninyo. For this figure, you are required to determine the internal forces for members e.g., FG, and FH. Now, in these methods, the very first thing you have to do is to determine the support reactions. So again, in determining the support reactions, we're going to use the three static equations. So for this case, the summation of forces along the x-axis is equal to 0, wherein to the right positive. Iisa lang ang force along the x-axis, that is HA. Therefore, my HA is equal to 0. Summation of forces along the y-axis. Paano itong summation of forces along the y-axis? Upwards, positive. So, VA is upward, minus 10, minus 10, minus 10, plus VJ is again upwards. Simplifying this, VA plus VJ is equal to 30 kilonewtons. I need one more equation para makuha ko yung values ni VA and ni VJ. May isa pa akong equation na natitira, yun yung summation of moments. Now, I chose to take summation of moments dito sa my point J. Nasa sa inyo kung gusto nyong mag-moment kay point A. What's important here is the direction. For my case, I'm going to take moments at point J wherein clockwise positive. So, itong si VA, kapag nag-moment siya kay J, that is clockwise, that's why that is positive. Etong 10, kapag nag-moment kay J, that is counter. This is also counterclockwise. This is also counterclockwise. Etong mga values na to, these are your moment arms or these are the distances. So si VA, ang distance ni VA hanggang kay J is 8. Yung distance ng 10 kilonewtons na to, doon kay J is 2, 4, 6. And the distance of this 10 kn hanggang kay J is 4. The distance of this 10 kn hanggang kay J is 2. Now, inputting this in your calculator, VA is equal to 15 kilonewtons. Now, substitute this 15 kilonewtons doon sa may VA plus VJ is equal to 30 kilonewtons. VJ is equal to 15 kilonewtons. So, nasolve ko na yung mga internal reactions. Pwede na akong pumunta sa next procedure ko. Since this is a method of joints, I'm going to choose a point kung saan malapit siya sa mga unknowns. And kapag in-isolate ko yung joint na iyon, dalawa na lang yung magiging unknown ko. What do I mean by that? Now, for this example, yung mga reactions na solve ko na, that is 15 kilonewtons. And these are the unknowns for this problem. The internal force for EG, FG, and FH. So, pipili ngayon ako ng joint kung saan dalawa lang ang unknown. Pwede kong sabihin, kukunin ko si joint A, kasi ito na lang ang unknown. Pwede ko rin namang sabihin kay J, kasi ito yung unknown na naka-attach sa kanya. Masyadong malayo si A sa mga EG, FG, and FH. Ang malapit dito kay EG, FG, and FH ay si J. So, si J ngayon ang i-isolate ko. Ganyan ang magiging itsura ni J. May naka-attach na JI, may naka-attach na JH. Now, yung mga directions ni JI at saka ni JH, inassume ko lang tong mga to. Mache-check ko mamaya kung tama yung mga assumptions ko. So, if I take summation of forces along the x-axis, iisa lang ang nasa may x-axis or nasa horizontals, that is JH. So, JH is equal to 0. If I take summation of forces along the y-axis, upwards positive, 15 is positive, negative si JI. Kasi pababa siya. Therefore, my JI is 15 kilonewtons. Now, take note of this. Kapag yung dun sa na-solve ko, JI is turned to be positive 15. Ibig sabihin, tama yung assumption ko na si JI pababa. Ulitin ko, lumabas sa calculations ko na si JI ay positive. Ibig sabihin, yung assumption ko kanina, tama. But, if this turned out to be negative, ibig sabihin, wrong yung assumption ko. You have to change that one. Since na-prove ko na si JI is towards the point J, therefore, that is a strut or that is a compression member. Proceeding. Na-solve ko na si JH at saka si JI. Pili ako ulit ng isang joint para ma-solve ko yung mga tinatanong ng problem. I'm going to choose joint I. At joint I, naka-attach doon si IG at saka si IH. Now, you have to take note of this. Itong angle na to is the same with this angle. And the same with this angle. Paano ko makukuha yung mga angles na yan? 2 meters yung height ng truss, 2 meters din itong length na to, itong width na to. So, if I'm going to take the inverse tangent of 2 divided by 2, this is 45 degrees. Same true with this one. This is also 45. Pati itong angle na to, 45 din. So, nakuha ko na yung angle. I can now proceed. If I take summation of forces along the y-axis, upwards positive. Upward si 15 kaya positive. Di ba yung discussion natin kanina, since IH is nakaslant siya at a certain angle at yung angle na yun is 45 degrees, the vertical component of IH is IH sine 45. Now, inputting this in your calculator, my IH is equal to 21.21 kilonewtons. Again, the direction of my IH is away from the joint, therefore that is a tie. And the summation of forces along the x-axis, to the right positive. IG is to the right, so that's positive. Again, the horizontal component of IH is IH cosine 45. Since the horizontal component points to the left, that is negative. In putting this in your calculator, my IG now is equal to 15 kilonewtons. And since the direction of my arrow is towards the joint, that is a strut, or IG is under compression. So, nasolve ko na si IJ, IH, and IG. But you have to take note, 0 CJH. IJ is under compression. And ang ginawa ko lang kasi dito, si compression negative para madali sa akin. And si tension is positive. IH is 21.21. IG is 15. Again, ang tinatanong ng problem is EG, FG, and FH. So next, I'm going to choose joint H. And nasolve natin na itong si 21.21 is tension, kaya yung arrow ko is away from the joint. Itong si GH at saka si FH, assumptions ko lang yung mga directions. Hindi ko na nilagay si HJ kasi 0 naman siya. So if I'm going to take the summation of forces along the y-axis, upwards positive. Downwards si GH, my vertical component si 21.21. So, since taas siya, that is positive. My GH now is equal to 15 kilonewtons. And since the arrow is towards the point, that is a strut. If I take summation of forces along the x-axis, my FH is negative. The horizontal component of 21.21 is 21.21 multiplied by cosine of 45 degrees. So my FH is equal to 15 kilonewtons. Again, FH is away from the point, so that is a tie. Nasolve ko na yung isang unknown, yung FH. Mayroon pa akong FG and EG. Again, pili ako ulit ng isang joint kung saan makukuha ko na si EG at saka si FG. Fine. So, I'm going to choose joint G. At joint G, may naka-attach na GH. Nasolve ko na si GH. That is 15. Yung direction, since si GH is compression, so yung arrow ko is towards the joint. Si IG naman, compression din yung nakuha ko kanina, so towards the joint. May 10 kilonewtons. Yung direction ni EG at saka ni GF, assumptions ko lang ulit to, mache-check ko ito mamaya. So if I take summation of forces along the y-axis, upwards positive. 15 is upwards, minus 10. My vertical component si GF. So I have to multiply that by sine 45 degrees. My GF is equal to 7.07 kilonewtons. Again, GF is away from the joint, so that is a tie. Summation of forces along the x-axis. EG is to the left, to the right, sorry. So that is positive, minus 15. The horizontal component of GF is 7.07 multiplied by cosine 45 degrees. That is to the left, so that's negative. Therefore, my EG now is equal to 20 kilonewtons, and that is a strut. Therefore, now, these are my answers for the EG, FG, and FH. Now, for the method of section, the same problem. Ang unknown natin is E, G, F, G, and F, H. And nasolve na natin kanina yung mga reactions. Now, for the method of sections, since ang unknown natin ay si E, G, F, G, and F, H, sa mga unknowns na to, pass through it a cutting plane. So, in my case, nagpass ako ng section A prime. O, dyan ako nag-cut. So, i-cut nyo yung section na yon. After cutting that section, you have to choose kung i-consider nyo ba yung left or yung right. Ang importante lang, or ang i-take note nyo lang, in your case, piliin nyo yung section kung saan konti lang yung mga external forces. Pero kung gusto nyo mahirapan, piliin nyo yung mas maraming external forces. Pero the same lang din yung analysis. So in my case, I'm going to choose the left side of this section. So kung pipiliin ko yung left side, ganito yung magiging itsura. Ito yung left side. Yung directions ni EG, ni FG at saka ni FH, itong mga arrows na to, these are just my assumptions. Again, mache-check ko mamaya kung tama tong mga to. Diba, nasolve na natin si HA tsaka si FA. HA is 0, VA is 15. After that, nasolve nyo yung mga reactions at nakapili na kayo ng section, next thing you have to do, kapag method of sections, I'm going to take a moment at F. Bakit ako magmo-moment kay F? Now, pag magmo-moment ako kay F, magzi-0 si FG at saka si FH. Ang unknown ko na lang si EG. So, kapag nag-moment si VA kay F, that is clockwise. So, that's 15. The distance of VA hanggang kay F is 4. Itong 10, kapag nag-moment kay F, that is counterclockwise. So, that's minus 10. The distance is 2. Magzi-zero out itong 10 kilonewtons na to kasi nag-pass through siya kay F. Itong EG, kapag magmo-moment kay F, that is counterclockwise, kaya minus, the distance of EG up to F is 2. Okay? So, substituting these values, the EG now is equal to 20 kilonewtons. Bakit strat? As you can see here, the direction of EG is towards joint E. Kapag yung arrow towards the joint, that is under compression. Ay, nasolve ko na yung isang unknown, si EG. Next, I'm going to take summation of forces along the x-axis. FH is to the right, so that's positive. Minus EG. EG is to the left, so that's negative 20. Plus the So I'm going to take the summation of forces along the y-axis. 15 is upwards, minus 10, minus 10. Again, yung vertical component ni FG is FG sine 45 degrees. FG now is equal to 7.07 kilonewtons. Again, that is a tie. Bakit tie? Yung direction ng arrow ko is away from joint F, so that is a tie. Summation of forces along the x-axis, to the right positive, FH is to the right. EG or itong 20 na to is to the left, so minus. Plus FG cosine 45. Nasolve ko si FG kanina, that is 7.07. So masosolve ko si FH, that is equal to 15 kilonewtons. Nasolve ko na yung mga unknowns ko, EG, FG, and FH. See the difference between method of joints and method of sections? Again, sa method of sections, pag nag-cut kayo ng plane, make sure na as much as possible, stable pa rin yung structure nyo. In this case, nag-cut ako kay EG, FG, and FH, kaya pa rin tumayo nung truss. Ayan. So again, pili kayo either right or left nung na-cut nyo. Basta ang importante doon, yung mga sign conventions ninyo. Yung illustrative problem number 3 dun sa notes ninyo. Determine all the member forces using a combination of the method of joints and the method of sections for this truss. So again, very first thing you have to do is to determine the support reactions. So I take summation of moments at E. Again, if you take summation of moments, choose a point wherein kung maaaring magzi-zero out yung ibang mga nodes. So in this case, if I take summation of moments at point E, clockwise positive, magzi-zero si HA. So VA times the distance is 12, minus 40, the distance is 9.5, minus 53, its distance is 6, minus 40, its distance is 2.5. Therefore, the value of my VA is 66.5 kilonewtons. This is the same as VE. If you want to double check this one, you can double check it for the value of VA and VE. I take summation of forces along the x-axis, magsi-zero out si HA. If I take summation of forces along the y-axis, you can check that VA is equal to VE. So these are the forces. Now, since ang unknown ay yung lahat ng members, first, it's your choice kung mag-i-start kayo ng method of joints or method of section. But for in my case, I'll start with method of section kasi parang nakita nyo kanina, mas madali kapag method of section. Mas marami siyang masasolve kaagad. So if I'm going to take method of section and ikakat ko yung magpapastro ako ng cutting plane dun sa may BC, HC, tsaka HG. Nakikita nyo dyan sa screen, itong cutting plane ko na AA prime. Diyan ako magka-cut. So, kapag nag-cut ako ngayon dito sa portion na to, pili ngayon ako ng section kung saan mas maliit yung mga forces. Pipiliin ko itong left section. Kasi konti lang yung forces. Kapag pinili ninyo itong right section, okay lang din. Okay lang na piliin nyo yung right. But for my case, pipiliin ko yung left kasi konti lang yung mga forces na nakikita ko. So, ito yung magiging itsura nung left side. Mayroon akong reaction na 66.5. May external force na 40 kilonewtons. Mayroon yung member BC kasi doon ako nag-cut, si HC at saka si HG. Ngayon, itong mga green arrows na to, yung directions nila, again, these are just my assumptions. Para makaproceed ako. Mache-check ko mamaya kung tama yung mga assumptions ko. Para hindi na ako mag-solve ng mga angles. I chose to use slopes. So, kay member BC, the height of BC is 2, and the horizon and the length is 3.5. The slope is 4.03. For HC, the height is 4, the length is 3.5, and the slope is 5.32. Mas pinili ko yung slope compared sa angles kasi mas madali para sa akin ang slope. Ayun. So, if I take summation of moments at H, ba't ako magmo-moment kay H? Kasi pag magmo-moment ako kay H, magzi-zero si HC at saka si HG. Ang unknown ko na lang si BC. Right? So, I take summation of moments. If I take summation of moments at H, 66.5 is clockwise, kaya positive. The distance is 2.5. Itong BC. Tandaan ninyo, BC is nakaslant. There is a vertical and horizontal component. If I'm going to draw, this is the horizontal component of BC. Ito yung vertical component ni BC. Kung mapapansin ninyo, yung vertical component ni BC, magpapass through siya kay H, kaya mag-zero out siya. Ang matitira na lang ay yung horizontal component ni BC. If I'm going to take the horizontal component of BC, that is 3.5, divide it by the hypotenuse 4.03, multiplied by BC. This is the force. But I have to multiply this by the distance since we are dealing with moments. The distance of BCH hanggang kay H ay 2. So my BC now is equal to 95.71 kilonewtons. Now, it turned out na positive yung nakuha kong answer. So, tama yung direction ni BC. So, since BC is towards joint B, therefore, BC is under compression. Now, if I'm going to take summation of forces along the y-axis, 66.5 is upwards, 40 is downwards. Now, ito ngayon, si BC, that is equal to 95.71, the vertical component is 2, divide it by the hypotenuse 4.03, plus HC. The vertical component of HC is 4, divide it by the hypotenuse 5.32, multiplied by HC. So, if I'm going to substitute or input this in my calculator, my HC is equal to positive 27.93. Again, positive. Ibig sabihin, tama yung direction ko ng HC. And HC is away from the joint. Therefore, that is tension. Next, nagamit ko na si summation of moments, summation of forces along the y-axis. Gagamitin ko ngayon si summation of forces along x-axis. To the right, positive. To the right si HG, kaya positive. To the left, yung horizontal component ni BC. The horizontal component of BC is 3.5 over the hypotenuse multiplied by BC. My BC is 95.71. The horizontal component of HC is to the right, kaya positive, plus 3.5, divide it by the hypotenuse, multiplied by HC, that is 27.93. Therefore, now, my HG is equal to 64.75. Again, it turned out this is positive. Therefore, tama yung naging direction ko. That is away from joint H. Therefore, that is tension. Next, balikan ko lang. Nasolve ko na si BC, si HC, at saka si HG. Pili ngayon ako ng isang joint kung saan dalawa na lang yung unknown. In this case, I'm going to choose A kasi yun pa lang yung parang simple. So, if I'm going to choose point A. So, I'm going to choose joint A. Now, in joint A, may naka-attach na AB at saka AH. Yung direction ni AB at saka ni AH, assumptions ko lang yun. Mat-check ko yun mamaya. So, given yung slope ni AB, that is 2 by 2.5 and the hypotenuse is 3.2. So, if I take summation of forces along the y-axis, pataas si 66.5, the vertical component of AB is 2 divided by the hypotenuse 3.2 multiplied by AB. Again, yung vertical component ni AB is downwards, kaya minus. My AB now is equal to 106.4. Now, it turned out this is positive. Therefore, tama yung direction ni AB and that is towards the joint A. Therefore, that is compression. Kapag iti-take ko yung summation of forces x-axis, positive si AH kasi to the right, yung horizontal component ni AB that is equal to 2.5 divided by the hypotenuse multiplied by AB that is 106.4. My AH now is equal to 83.13. And my AH is away from the joint, therefore that is tension. Again, pili ulit ako ng isang joint para ma-solve ko yung ibang mga members. I'm going to choose joint B. At joint B, may naka-attach na BC, BH, at saka AB. So, since naka-attach siya, yung mga directions nila, na-zoom ko ulit. Pero na-solve ko na kanina si AB. Ang AB ko is compression, so towards the joint. Tama ngayon yung direction ko kay AB. Na-zoom ko lang si BC and BH. So if I'm going to take summation of forces along the y-axis, na-solve ko na pala kanina si BC. So substitute ko na lang. Y is upward, positive. Pababa si 40, kaya minus. BH is upward, so plus. And the vertical component of AB is 2 divided by 3.2. Yung AB ko kanina is 106.4. The vertical component of BC is 2 over 4.03. The vertical component is downward, kaya negative. My BC is, nasolve ko kanina, 95.71. Substitute the values. My answer is 21 kilonewtons. So, positive siya. Ibig sabihin, tama yung assumption ko. And the direction is towards the joint. Therefore, that is compression. Another, choose again a joint para makuha pa yung ibang mga members. So, if I'm going to consider joint G, may naka-attach na HG, CG, tsaka FG. If I take summation of forces along the y-axis, iisa lang si CG, so that is 0. If I take summation of forces along the x, may dalawa, si HG at saka si FG. Na-solve na natin kanina si HG, that is 64.75. Since si HG is to the left, so minus, si FG ay to the right, so plus, FG now is equal to 64.75 kilonewtons tension. We have already determined the values of the members for AB, AH, BC, HC, HG, BH, and GF seen through with CG. Now, this truss is an example of a symmetrical truss. What do we mean by symmetrical? Symmetrical means if I'm going to put or if I'm going to cut this here in the center, the left side is the same as the right side. Kumbaga, nag-mirror siya. So, if a structure is symmetrical, you don't need to go through the process again here in the right side. So, whatever the values here in the left is equal to the values here in the right side. So, in this case, AB is equal to DE, that is 106.4 under compression. AH is the same as EF, that is 83.13 tension. BC is the same as CD, 95.71 under compression. HC is the same as CF, that is 27.93 tension. HG, as you can see here, that is equal to GF. BH is equal to DF, that is equal to 21 kilonewtons under compression. So we've already solved this problem. The values of the internal forces for each member is equal to this one, as you can see here in your screen.